creating a new branch of military, this is a massively expensive and bureaucratic effort, sort of the opposite of what this administration claims to be doing across the board. Give us your view.
Well, it certainly sounds that way, Stephanie. I think, you know, anytime you add more bureaucracy to an already large bureaucracy, it's going to cost a lot of money. I think, you know, the capability we're talking about is something that probably already exists in the U.S. military, in the Air Force, the Navy, the other armed services. You know, I spent 25 years in the Navy and 20 of it at NASA. And this is not something that we ever really heard was a serious consideration over all that time. So it's kind of hard to understand at this point.
The former Secretary of the Air Force said that the president is confusing a service branch and a combatant command. What's the difference here, and what would the aim be? If you subscribe to the president's notion that we should have a Space Force, what is that Space Force meant to be doing?
Well, that's the number one question. I mean, are we talking about like new offensive capability in space? Are we talking about space-based weapons? You know, some of these things are restricted by international treaties that the United States has been a party to since the 1960s. So, you know, it's not clear to me what the purpose is of this new branch of the military, which is going to be incredibly expensive. And my big concern here is that, you know, space has been a place for us to work in a peaceful manner. Mm-hmm. And, you know, changing that with not any clear reason at this point is, like I said, it's kind of hard to understand.
Kind of like the Olympics, right? Space is one, like the International Space Station is one of those places where you're up there with people, astronauts from all over the world. It's the one place where we actually codepend and we get things done. We actually probably want Earth to feel a little more like space.
You know, absolutely. It's an environment where former enemies, and actually even people that you could currently argue are enemies, can work together in a peaceful way.
Then,
you know,
where do you think this is coming from? Usually when the president has a legislative agenda, you can travel it back to a portion of his base or his administration as something he ran on. This one, who do you think is what's the motivation behind it? I think back to the military exercises that the president wants to cancel taking place in Asia because he claims it costs too much. This would cost way more. Who wants to do it?
You know, I don't really want to speculate too much on the president's motivations, but, you know, I would like to point out that, you know, the Space Force is talking about some, you know, future potentially, you know, almost scientific war that we may have to be a party of. How about deal with the war we're currently in, the cyber war that is, you know, calling, you know, trying to affect our democracy, the thing that is most important to the United States, which is free and fair elections. We're currently in a war right now. Why don't we worry? We should worry about that one and, you know, worry about war in space later.
I'm sure Commander Scott's told you this, but every time we talk, he reminds me that if everybody actually hung out in space, went up on a space shuttle, orbited space, went to the International Space Center, the station, the looking back on Earth changes your entire view of fighting over resources, fighting over things. It sort of does give you, just gives you a better perspective, I guess, by definition, right, Scott?
Absolutely. An orbital perspective. It makes, you know, when you look at Earth from space, makes it. We are all part of this one planet. We're in this together, and we need to work together.